God, I'm in a disaster. All right, guys. Well, first of all, thanks for coming out. Clearly, the weather's been challenging. And happy International Women's Day. We love you. We celebrate you. My personal belief really is that every day should be International Women's Day. So thanks for coming out. Thank you for Maurice and the Martinez team for being able to host this tonight. Thank you for Alex of King of Soho for providing the drinks. We love you, and the gin is delicious. So thank you very much. So I've put together a bit of a format today of some things that I think would make some interesting discussion points. As you know, the topic is how to have more interesting conversations offline. This comes from the thought that I feel like a lot of us share the frustration of online apps and just kind of the lack of conversion that's perhaps going on there. So I feel that if we can improve our offline conversations, then there should be no excuse really as to why you can't meet someone. You know, I believe that as soon as you get out of your house, you have the ability to meet someone new for the first time. Why we don't? Perhaps there's certain unwanted thoughts upstairs that we keep hanging on to, past experiences. And that's the most important thing we've got to get right. Yeah, it's the conversation that we're actually having with ourselves. Because if you don't improve the conversation you're having with yourself, then you're going to project something outward onto someone that might not be beneficial for you. So we're going to get straight into that in a minute, the inner work, and then we're going to get into the juicier stuff. Before we get into that, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you that aren't really familiar with my work, I've been working in the dating and self-development space for over 15 years now. I was a motorsport engineering college dropout. I still possess that solution-based mindset, but I've kind of moved it into the social studies. I found psychology and people and the mind super interesting. Like a lot of people, nightlife was super exciting for me at a very young age. I didn't know how to interact with people in that space, and I used that as a motivation to learn. And it provided me of a high turnover of opportunity to accumulate a lot of data. And what I found out was what makes impact with people and what doesn't. And some of those things I'm going to share with you today. A lot of my work has took me international. I'm currently at a stage in my career where I've got a lot of internationals flying in to see me, to work with me privately, or they fly me out to see them. And the work is at a very high level. It's not just for helping you in your dating life, it's for helping you in your social life, and just how you are with yourself. You know, I mean, if you think about it, when it comes to relationships, everything's built on a relationship, right? The next person you're going to do business with, your career opportunity, your next friend of influence, and your next romantic partner. So if you've got a clear understanding of how to build solid relationships, life becomes a little bit more exciting, right? You have less limitations to what you're putting on yourself. Another, if I want to beat my own horn again, I was a best-selling author as well a few years ago, so that was something else. Thank you. All right, we'll get into it then. As I said earlier, the conversation we want to do, want to master really is the one we're having with ourselves, right? And I think what's really important is being able to regulate your mood and your mind. You know, you've got to be able to prime your mind for the sort of day that you want to have. It's quite interesting how certain things, certain life events can affect us. You might have had a bit of a crap day at work, and just the impact of that day is affecting your mood. And you're walking around with this mood and these thoughts, and unconsciously what's happening, you're projecting those thoughts onto someone else. So before you even opened your mouth, that person's already decided they're uncomfortable with your presence. So this is happening automatically on a day-to-day basis. Now I've said that, now perhaps we can become more aware of it, and we can start telling us more positive things, or we can start calling upon certain positive reference points to make ourselves feel better. Does that make sense? Yeah? And we can do that just by, like, we've heard of like positive affirmations and stuff, and I'm going into a bit of like pop psychology now, stuff that perhaps we're a bit familiar with, but this stuff really does work, right? And it might sound a bit cringy, but just write down things that really prime your mind to get into that space. It might be that I am attractive, I am desired. Write down moments where you thought that you weren't enough and your experience was different from your initial thoughts. Does that make sense? So just come up with positive affirmations, tell yourself these things, and you'll get yourself in that positive state. And you will project that onto people. Okay? You've got to get your social muscles moving ASAP. Now, I'll give you a little analogy of this. There was some building work being done on the block that I live in. And I just told myself, right, I'm going to go out today, I'm just going to grab a coffee in the high street. But the idea I had in my head was like, I'm going to see how social I can get today, like as soon as I leave the house. So as soon as I left the house, the first person that I come across was the building manager that was looking after all of the workers. I just had a simple interaction. It was the first person I have the opportunity in my day to have an interaction with. And I just had the banter with him. I asked it how it was going. When is he buggering off? He's taking the piss, being here for too long now. And, we had a laugh, and I felt good about that. He felt good about that because I'm probably the only resident out of the whole 52 apartments that are there that's even noticed him, acknowledged him, and sort of lifted his mood up. So I'm walking down the high street. I see this new shop that's opened, and they're selling plants. Right, so I go in there and I make a joke of like, buying plants is funny. Like, all it is picking up plants to go home and kill them. And I told them about my experience of plants, etc. Again, lifted my mood, lifted their mood. So it's just, I call this like a social snowball. The more people you're socializing with, the better, because you don't know who you're going to meet in your day. And it might be someone you find interesting or attractive. And if you've been warming up, then you're going to be ready when you need it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I found myself speaking to a charity worker down that high street, and then I found myself in the coffee shop. I was ordering my coffee. I was having a laugh with them. And, just to the side, someone had ordered their coffee, and I said, what did you go for? These simple little interactions can really create opportunity for you. So I really want you to be a bit more mindful of, like, day to day, how many more interactions you could be having, because we can just get so caught up of leaving the house, going straight to work, and that's it. We're on autopilot. We're not even thinking. Make sense? Yeah. Cool. Any questions, by the way? Because I'd love for this to be an interactive experience as opposed to a classroom lecture, Yeah. So my next point is, before we get into the conversation, again, this is the inner work, right? It's what do you actually want, right? A lot of us, we're dealing with frustration because we don't actually know what we want. It's the same thing with the online dating apps, right? We're like, these people, they all want the same. But it's like, okay, well, do you know what you want? Because if you know what you want, then you might be filtering a bit better and asking the right questions to see if that person is of the right sort of makeup that's fitted for what you want right now, okay? So there's a little exercise that I do, and if we've got, you could just, thank you. You can just write this in your phone if you want to make a reference of it. But when I'm doing this work with my clients, we just do two simple lists here. One is like the superficial stuff, right? It's the visual elements. Visual, and this side here is going to be the character. Okay, and this is all subjective to what your taste is. But how this works is it's like putting in the coordinates to the... Oh, we've got a first spillage. So this is like putting in the coordinates to the GPS, right? If you're more awake to what you want, what you're attracted to physically, and in detail, by the way, don't be vague with it, then as you're going about your day, you're really going to tune into that. You're going to see it. An example of this is like when I bought a car when I was younger, I was going to the garage and I was walking around the forecourt and I was just fantasizing about owning this car, right? And I was looking around, I think, oh, I'm getting closer to it. And every time I got into the banger that I was driving around at the time, I'd hit the road and I'd see so many of the car that I was desiring. So there's something going on there, right? When we really tune into that frequency of things that we want, we're more awake to seeing it. There's more observation going on. So I really do think it's an important exercise to do. So that's a bit of homework straight away. Just think visually, what is it that I'm drawn towards, okay? And let's move on to the next part of this, the character traits, okay? What have we learned from perhaps past experiences, our relationships that did work, our relationships that didn't, or stuff that we know to be important to us, right? Example, it might be that they're very outgoing, right? They're a social person. It might be they're fitness orientated. In recent years, you found that someone more steered towards that direction is important to you. They have their own business, or they're a professional. They're is faith, is a certain faith, they follow a certain faith, is that important to you? Like, these are just examples, like, again, these are all going to be subject to what's important to you. But again, what it helps us with is bringing this stuff up subtly in conversation to see if this person has these values or is in alignment with those values. Does that make sense? Because something might be a deal breaker, and you might have invested 6 months with this person only to find it out then, right? So that's a bit of homework, the visual stuff and the character traits. Okay, so before we get into what makes an interesting conversation, I think we need to discuss what makes a not so interesting conversation. So I've called this, it looks like I'm about to draw the crazy matrix on the board. That's not the case here. This is what I call the yawn zone, okay? And this is how most conversations kind of end up, right? And so we've got excitement going up this way. We've got the length of the conversation going this way. We start here. We go, it gets exciting. Okay, cool. yeah. oh, yeah. yeah, oh, see you around. Yeah. We're all familiar with that. Either we've been guilty of it or experienced it on a regular basis, right? So, and let's just familiar ourselves, like that's that there, yeah? The yawn zone. Yeah, the new zone to be thinking about, not the friend zone, it's yawn zone. So in theory then, if we look at that graph, stop the pen, just someone shout out to me, where does it look like it needs to stop? Here? The first person said here, yeah? We're still going further? There? Keep going. Oh, there. Okay. That's true. That's a different graph I'm going to do in a second. You're all right. We've got a star student in the room already. So, I've dabbled in the stock market before. I know what losing money feels like. I see the stock price go up. Now I'm getting greedy. I'd rather actually leave money on the table and take my winnings. Yeah. So, it doesn't have to hit the peak, but just before, that's when you want to get out. Right? One of the points that we discussed in a bit is when to leave the conversation, and because this should be something that we just want to be very, very aware of. I'll give you another analogy. This is pretty extreme. I used to work for my family business that supplied, their customers were in all sorts of engineering spaces. Anyone that would work with metal, we'd supply them welding consumables. That was like one of my first jobs for my family. And I took on the role as their sales representative. part of my day was to go around and map out a journey and knock on everyone's doors, see if they needed anything, industrial sites and all this kind of stuff. There was this one guy that I really feared going to see because I knew I'd lose about 3 hours of my day. The guy was like, bless him, he was obviously very lonely. He worked on his own in a dirty metal shop, and he was just a very selfish person when it comes to conversation, right? Like, he would talk and talk and talk, and I'd be there, and I'm half an hour in, and I'll go, all right, he sounds like he's winding down now. Then he gets a bit of chalk out and starts drawing his diagrams of what he's explaining on the flipping floor. I'm just like, oh. And then, another half hour passes. I'm trying to get out of the warehouse, and then he talks about ordering something, and he's ordered £100 worth of stuff. It's like, but what's going on there is a very selfish person, because he's just talking and talking and talking. He's never even asked me a question. He's just been sadly telling me about his life story. And again, that's something else that we need to be aware of, that whole sort of just dominating a conversation. That just lacks so much awareness and empathy and care, really, Sorry? It's not. It's a status update. It's a monologue, right? Presentation, yeah. But you were right. Just to add on to your saying going in and out of the conversation, right? I'll draw a little graph here. And it's an extension of what this could potentially look like in the long run. Right? So then what would happen is you'd get out here, you'd come back in, you'd get out here, you'd come back in, and so forth, yeah? And this timeline can be subjective. This timeline could be 15 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, 3 or 4 months, 6 months, years. The whole point is you leave someone better than you found them, right? Because what happens is you anchor positive emotion or negative emotion every time you see someone. So that's the kind of thing you've got to be aware of when you're playing on. Does that make sense? Cool. So other things that make a negative experience. Question stacking, right? Questions that lead you to a yes or no, right? That's something you need to be more aware of. It's just exhausting. It's boring, It lacks intelligence and care. So be aware of that. Instead of asking questions that lead to a yes or a no, experiment with questions that start with a how, where, who, why. That elicits information. It doesn't bring the conversation to a stop. Right? Dominating the conversation and not taking interest, we've just discussed. Now this is a funny one. Overplaying the game of top trumps. Right? Does anyone know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Right.
Do you mean becoming a bit of a competition with something?
Yeah, it's...
a story that, I did this.
Well, I was working...
I've done this.
You've done... Everyone's done it. It becomes a cringe. I've come across it so many times, especially here in London, and it's like everyone really wants to establish some sort of status or significance. And that's fine at the beginning, it's a communication thing. You're sharing where you are on the pecking order. But if it becomes a pissing contest, it's just it's a cringe. So, again, just be aware of that yourself, and being around those people that are like that as well. Okay? Overstaying your welcome, right? So we talked about the yawn zone. How can you read that you're overstaying your welcome? The other person is either showing disinterest or interest. So disinterest would be they're not asking you questions, they're not engaging with you, their body language is stiff, their shoulders are around, they're pointing away. Learn to read the body language and just walk away from the deal, right? Any questions on any of that? Cool. Right, okay, so this is what I believe to be the structure where you can build chemistry with absolutely anyone. Like, really. I'm gonna give you a point that is, it's in a few flips away, but I'm gonna throw it in early now. You can be a passive listener or an active listener, right? And listening in itself is a skill that we all need to get better at. Rather than just waiting for your turn to talk, actually sit there, tune in, and listen to what you're receiving. Because if you're not listening, then you're missing all the potential hooks that you could play with, right? The opportunity to then build rapport with someone. So number one is you've got to listen. We've all got to get better at listening. Okay, now, the icebreaker is the first thing that kind of gets it going, right? It can be, I think we put too much pressure on ourselves on what shall I say. That's not the most important thing of the structure. Right? You just need to get the conversation started. It can be a compliment, right? It can be an observation. It can be an assumption. It can be absolutely anything. You just need to get the conversation started. There could be something going on that you could use as a talking point, right? What matters is what you say in response to their response, okay? So as soon as someone opens their mouth, typically, what I'm going to hear is an accent. That gives me the opportunity to move the conversation onto that, right? If someone's dressed quite intriguingly, then I might comment on the way that they're dressed. It's all a hook. The most important thing we need to get good at is the challenge and relate. So if I said, oh wow, you've got really great sense in style, tell me a little about that. Like straight away I'm going for a hook, but then I'm hearing their voice come out. Then I'm hearing that they're from somewhere. I go, wow, where is your accent from? They're gonna say, well, Italy. Now, I've got the opportunity, so Italy is the hook. You're keeping up here, right? Where I'm going with this. Yeah. I have the opportunity to relate to that talking point or challenge them on that talking point. It's not okay to be ignorant. If you've never been to Italy, that's amazing. It gives you opportunity to ask a question about it. For example, wow, you know what, it's ridiculous. I've never been to Italy. But if I was to go there for a long weekend, tell me 3 places that aren't typically so touristy that I should check out. Right? Tell me something about this. Tell me 3 things about that. Right? Or why is that important to you? Maybe on a subject of their career or their passion. At what point in your life did you realize that was important for you? Look what we're doing. It's the what, the where, the who, the how. These open the conversations up. They give us more meat to play with. There's no pun intended there, by the way, dirty. So you're always going to be seesawing between the challenge mechanism and the relate mechanism. And again, if you're actively listening to their responses, you should just start seeing their words come at you in slow motion like the Star Wars credits. You know, just see those words coming at you, those topics, and you're thinking, can I relate to this information? If not, okay, ask a question. The right sort of question, okay? If you run out of things to say, it is because you've missed the hook, right? So that means you go back to make an observation or assumption to bring something new into play. Does that make sense? Okay. So you can imagine now, we've got that graph going on, you've seen in the picture before, and the excitement scale is going quite up, it's getting high here. Right? So this might just be in the daytime. You might be in the shopping mall, you might be picking up a coffee, you might be talking to the guy that's doing the building work on your building. No one's safe anymore. So when you're identifying that there's a bit of excitement and there's some interest, that could be a good indicator to probably wrap it up. Because remember, we want to leave someone on a high, right? And I think it's really funny because if we listen to our body when we're really engaging with someone and we're realizing that there's rapport and there's chemistry going on, what then does tend to happen naturally is we just drive it until we've just squeezed all the juice out of the orange. And it's because of our programming is like, oh, you'll meet someone, one day you'll meet someone. So I think really in that moment, we're getting a bit too excited and then we're killing it. So let's do this. Let's try and get out here. Let's remember that. When we've got that feeling in our body that's going, wow, I'm really enjoying this, that's happening to them too. Wrap it up at that point. Make sense? Yeah. For example, how do we stay in touch? Or, oh, it was really nice to speak to you. Like, how do we continue this? That's not weird. That just makes sense. Yeah? Any questions? No? No, that's it.
I'm just trying to remember how we met. Did you ask me?
Not like that. Yeah, again, a similar structure would have been at the bar, from recognizing you from somewhere. Exactly. Observation. Oh, I saw you at the other place. Blah, blah. That was an icebreaker. But then what came next was all of this stuff. Yeah. I mean, this stuff is just hardwired into my head. I'm not thinking about it when I'm doing it. It's automatic. But I think at the beginning, be interested to try some of this stuff out and just see the difference in the quality of your interactions and your conversations. Okay? Right. So, what we're going to do now is have a little break. Okay? You're going to get a drink, and you're going to have these conversations. You're going to try some of these things out. All right? So, over to the bar, get another drink, and have a conversation with someone that you haven't spoke to yet. Go. You hit the music. Okay, so how did were you able to try a few things out there in regards to what we spoke about?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Notice the difference?
Definitely.
So just on the break there, that was an opportunity to maybe just try some stuff out that we spoke about within the conversations you were having. Did you notice a difference? Did you try it, first of all? No?
Just kind of observe. So when you're talking to someone, you can, didn't try the various bits, but you can chunk up the bits of what's being said to you and go, oh yeah, okay, that's could be the hook, that could be the challenge response.
And I think when you're, I'm just going to bring this back into our awareness again. With these different segments, maybe just focus on one thing. If this is new information to you, just go out tomorrow and make an assumption about someone that you're speaking to. The great thing about this little piece here is you can assume anything about someone. It doesn't have to be correct. It can be wrong. It just doesn't matter. You just want to get a response from someone. Because if you've got a response, then you've got something to play with. The response is the hook. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then you challenge them on the hook or you relate to it. Right? Now you're going to be in rapport building territory. Just going to add, I don't normally add this on these little talks, but I'm going to show you this. Just be aware of it. This is an iceberg, right? And this is the surface here. Most interactions don't leave the surface, right? But when you start asking the right questions, you're challenging people on what they're saying, the information there, you go down a layer. And you keep going and you find more threads of conversation until you get to a place where you talk about your feelings, right? It doesn't matter who you are. We've all got feelings. We can all relate to something, someone's passion or why they do something, what they get out of it. Then you go in here. This place here is called deep rapport. When you've got deep rapport with someone, very few people have people in their lives that they have that with. So that connection then becomes very special and valued. And that's when you feel like you've got chemistry with someone. So you want to get to a place where it's deep rapport. Just have this visual in your head, we're at a surface level now. I've got to start asking the right questions. I've got to actively be listening so I'm getting the right information to play with, and then I can go deeper. That is how you can build chemistry with anyone, I promise you. I've done a podcast that is being displayed now on my Instagram. One thing I said is I'm 100% confident I can help people build chemistry with anyone. What you're left with is this compatible? You know, like, so you can have chemistry with anyone, but you can't be compatible with anyone. And for a number of reasons. I'm sure we've all come across that in our lifetime. Right, so here's some extra tips. You've got to give each other a starting point, okay? Now, as I said, it could be you're in a queue, you can compliment someone. You might be at the coffee shop. Now, let's take that scenario, for example. What are things that we can say in a coffee shop to get a conversation started? Throw something at me.
What are you ordering?
Yeah, being curious, right? That's a great social muscle to have, being curious. What did you go for, right? Just opens up a conversation. We don't really care about what they went for. We just want to get it, we want to give them a starting point to see if they bite or not. Another one in that scenario might be, do you know the Wi-Fi code? you can be in so many scenarios that go, do you know the Wi-Fi code? They know you know the Wi-Fi code, or it's there, you know, it's just a starting point. Is this person going to bite or not? It could be asking for directions to somewhere. Everyone's got a map in their phone. They know what's going on, you know, like be cheeky, be playful with this stuff. I've opened up conversations by asking if I can log into my Facebook on their computer. You know, like, it's just you've got to humor yourself with this stuff, right? If you're not humoring yourself, then you're not really inviting them into something. And that's a great place to start, by being playful. Like, my rule is, go out to be playful and understand not everyone wants to be playful. And that's absolutely fine, but you've got to start there, right? Like, the whole damsel in distress card is a great card to play as well. I remember being at the gym, me and my friend were working out, and we both looked at this girl and were like, okay. And next minute, she's very cleverly started to work out on the machine next to us. And she's just asked for help. And as she's asked for help, me and my friend go, no. We were both running after her to try and help her. But I thought, wow, that was a really cool move on her part. There was another situation where I was at the gym. I was training for this boxing match that I was doing this last year. And I was just hitting the bag, and I was training quite intensely. And this girl then just starts working out next to me on a mat, just doing her stretches and stuff. And she just asked me, oh, are you a professional boxer? Like, I'll give it a good go. I'm trying my best. But that was a great starting point. It was just look at the landscape. What can I just say to get a conversation started? And yes, I get it. Like, there's a lot of men that aren't taking the initiative, and understanding that, oh, she's giving me some rope here. But at least give it a go, just at least give them a starting point. There's a funny story that I'll share with you. A friend of mine, she's not here tonight, she wanted to be here, but she she went to buy a bike, right? And she felt there was a bit of tension between her and this guy. Like, what I mean by that is a bit of eye contact shared. There was something going on there. She found it to be interesting, and when she was checking out, going for the receipt, she goes, yep, and put your number on the top of there? Like, she just took a risk, right? Very cheekily took a risk. And he put the number on the top of that receipt. They exchanged messages, and they met up later that day. So again, like, just take a risk. Take a risk. Like, I feel like a lot of times we think stuff that we should or shouldn't do, but the handbrake's still on. You can have a lot of fun if you just release that handbrake and get a bit playful, right? So we've spoke about that. A lot of things can start from a compliment, asking for help, take a risk to get the reward. So just shared that story there with you. Body language, learn to read it. As I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of people fear, and I think especially men in today's climate, of being in the I'm harassing someone category. Right, being put in that category as a big fear, and sadly, what we know is there's a lot of women out there that are striving for romance and looking for men to actually show initiative, as we just discussed. They just want it to be done right? You guys want it to be done right, and that's just reading the signs. If someone's uncomfortable in your presence, don't continue an unwanted interaction. It's a no. She's not interested. So just be aware of that. How you can be received better. First of all, your image, the way you dress, the way you smell, right? And as we said earlier, what's going on in your head? Right? If we break down the creepy guy, why is he the creepy guy or the creepy girl? It's because they've got doubt in their mind. So if I'm approaching someone with doubt, then it's going to look a bit like this. That's a bit creepy. And again, it goes back to that self-talk. What am I telling myself? The first conversation we need to master is the one I'm having with myself. So if in my head I'm going, I hope she likes me, or I hope he likes me, so we've got to change it to something positive, So what I've found to be really helpful for the people that I work with is to create a phrase that really primes you into that state of mind. And that can be, that's completely subjective to what you want it to be. Like what turns you into that go-getter, right? It might be, he's mine, right? When you have that attitude, when you say that to yourself and you look outward, like that becomes exciting. You can see someone is cheeky and it builds tension. That's a million miles away from, I hope he likes me, We spoke about active listening versus passive listening, right? We need to all get better at that. And even like with the other distractions, like our phones, for example, I even like will call myself out on it early today. My friend came to visit me, and she was dropping something back that she borrowed, and my mind was all on tonight. So I was like talking to people about this. I was making some final notes, and I was like, okay, like sort of half there. And then she said something about her father, and I know her father's ill. So I just immediately put down my phone, and I just gave it 100%, right? But we need to be given 100% to whoever we're in the presence of, right? Because that's more of a meaningful connection. So just be more mindful of that. Getting into conversations can be difficult if you're a bit introverted. So look in your database. Who are your extroverted friends? Right? When I felt a bit introverted, those extroverted friends have got me into the playground. Even at times where I really could not be bothered to go out, those were my best nights. That loud friend that you kind of gets on your tits a little bit might be your biggest asset, because they'll bring these people into the interaction, or they'll have the confidence to go, whilst you're developing your confidence, to bring people to you. And here's one I've just been reminded of a moment ago when I was speaking to you over there. If you're going out a lot and you find yourself in interactions, you're going to lean on certain material and content that you found to be useful to you in the past. Might be some jokes, might be some gamuts, like anything. Get bored of hearing yourself say the same thing again and again and again. Because what you allow your mind to do is get a bit more creative for your own enjoyment and your own stimulation. So by definition, if you're moving your headspace into that creative space to have these sort of conversations, you're going to be the most interesting person in the room. Because if you're bored of hearing yourself say the same thing, it's going to come across as a script. Make sense? Okay, eye contact. Now I'll say this, most conversations start before you've even opened your mouth, right? We've all experienced it. We can fall in love with someone on the street every day. There's a bit of eye contact going on. For years this was happening to me, and I'm probably you guys share the same experience. I'd walk in the shopping mall, I'd exchange eye contact, and like, but there's just so much unknown going on here. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting thing going. Is she looking at me? She's looking at me. Hey, what's going on here? Yeah, a bit of an odd thing. It happened again, and then it started chipping away at my soul a bit. And I think, hang on a minute, something's obviously got to happen here. There's got to be some bridge. Like, how do we go from like looking to actually having a conversation? And I took a risk one day. I was actually, I'll be honest with you, I was hungover. And there's some quite amazing things that can happen when you're hungover. I'm sure we've got stories between us. But you're a bit sort of lethargic and you don't really care what you're doing. And I was in a shopping mall I saw this girl, and she was everything I was looking for at the time, in terms of visual attraction. And there's some eye contact, and she's down there. I'm going down these escalators, still some eye contact. I'm still hungover. I'm like, okay, there's something going on here, Johnny. You're going to give it a go. Yeah, I'm going to give it a go. Positive self-talk, yeah. And I found myself to have an interaction with this girl, and nothing magical was really exchanged. It was very simple. Johnny, nice to meet you, said her name. I thought, wow, what are you doing here? Blah, 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 just such and such church. We should stay in touch. That girl became my girlfriend for 2 years. And that was the first time I really sort of wrestled with the beast in my head of what is this? So you can really force a social cue from someone, right? Next time you see that happen, just say, hey. Just smile and go, hey. I've lost count time and time again. I've done it. The people I've worked with have done it, male and female, and it's led to something. Whether it's been an exchange of a number, seeing them on a date, or something more. This will happen to you tomorrow and the day after. You can immediately put this into effect. Okay? Now, let's get back to this. The whole eye contact thing with making you feel. What I need is a guinea pig. Can I have a guinea pig? Someone up here. Looking at you, Kasia, but maybe Ian, you can be. Alex, get up here. Come on, Alex. Go on. Round of applause for Alex.
So
all right.
I'm going to act shy.
No. Okay, so we're going to do something interesting now, right? I'm just going to use Alex to prove a point here. I'm going to look at you in 3 different ways.
Oh, fuck. Sorry. That's not a good idea.
It's not. It's not.
Okay, do you want to act like a normal
No,
person?
just your real experience, right? So I'm going to look at you in 3 different ways,
Okay.
and you're going to tell me how you feel, right?
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so first one is this.
Sorry. Oh god, that's a bit fucking scary. I wouldn't date you if you looked at me
Right,
like that.
okay. So that's the first one.
That's not the look, guys.
That was cute.
Just doing it for Connor. All right.
You're a psycho.
All right, so second one is going to be this.
Do I get to look at you?
Yeah, you can have your go in a minute. Right.
Okay. Bit intense. No, I'd leg it.
Right. Okay. And this is the last one.
Okay, go on. Oh yeah, I like that one.
Oh yeah.
Got me.
Thanks. A round of applause for Alex.
You got my look.
Go on, let's do it.
If I'm walking somewhere, sorry. Okay.
Oh, wow. All right, that's the move right there. Thank you, Alex. It's the Queen of Soho over there, the Queen of Soho. Right, jokes aside there, it's quite extraordinary if you think about it. Like, I'm the same person, and I've chose to make that person feel something different 3 times. Just let that sink in with you. And how I've done that is by changing my thoughts. Yeah? Again, backing up the point I made right at the start of this is what unconscious thoughts are we carrying around and what are we projecting? I met Pierce Brosnan once. Now, when that guy goes into a bar, I'm pretty sure he goes James Bond mode. Because, man, the guy's presence was just ridiculous. I'd never been in the presence of such a guy like Pierce Brosnan. I was like, wow. So priming is important. I mean, that guy, he can't walk into a bar and go, I hope everyone likes me. I mean, he's Pierce Brosnan, right? So think as much about yourself as he does, right? Carry a positive story about yourself, right? Come up with that phrase that primes that thought, and I guarantee your interaction is going to be much more better, okay? Right, so an exercise. Last one. What I want you to do, I want you to partner up. Okay? Come on, partner up, partner up. Yeah, up. Yeah, he's getting up. Stand up. Stand up. Yeah. Right. Who haven't you spoke to? Ian? Who haven't you spoke to?
1-2-1-2 thing.
Huh?
Like we're in school.
What's that?
We're gonna get paid like 2 kids.
Who have you not spoke to?
Jen? Hello.
Cool.
Yes,
You guys haven't? No? You
Yeah,
guys?
yeah.
Yeah, we're
I just
friends.
met
Oh, you're
her.
friends?
No, I don't know her.
Oh, you're fresh. Okay, cool. All right, so what we're going to do. All right. Everyone ready? Everyone. Right, this is what we're going to do, okay? I'm going to put the stopwatch on. Okay? Oh, fuck. Right. So what we're going to do here is I want you to look at your partner in the eyes, right? And I want you.
I'll try to do a friendly word.
I really want us to practice the importance of eye contact, okay, and the tension it builds. And I want you to get comfortable in this tension because nothing can happen outside of tension, right? So I'm going to start the watch, and we're going to hold eye contact for 1 minute.
Can we blink?
You can blink. 1 minute, right? I don't want you to be. Hey, guys. No conversation. Oh God. No conversation. When you hold an eye contact for 1 minute, Adam. Hold an eye contact for 1 minute. Let's go. What I want you guys to do is I want you to move some thoughts around in your mind to project onto the other there. All right. Well done. Thank you, guys. Give yourself a clap. Well done. Right.
Eye contact I ever done.
Right.
Saying something.
Right.
I was smiling.
All right, guys. Can I just get your attention for 1 second? All right. I just wanted to end on that. And Stuart, please. I just wanted to end on that because I just want to really emphasize, nothing can happen outside of tension, right? Hold that eye contact, nurture your mind, project that outward, and you're going to have so much more impactful interactions with people. You know, I mean, yes, that was a bit uncomfortable, but it's also very intimate, right? You got to face it. So I just want to say thank you again to Maurice and the Martinez Bar team. Thank you for having us. Thank you. Kings of Soho for supplying the lovely booze. Alex has been an absolute legend. And you lovely folks. And happy International Women's Day. All right. Cool.